When we install an aftermarket set of speakers into a vehicle, a good location to get awesome sound from the tweeter is to mount it in the sail panel. But what if your sail panel doesn't have a hole for a tweeter? Or what if the factory tweeter hole is too small for the new, more powerful, larger aftermarket tweeter? Then we're going to need to do some custom fabrication. What fiberglass and body filler materials should we use, and why do we drill holes in the panel? How can we perfectly match the factory texture of the plastic and the look using paint? All that and more is coming up in this video, where I install a custom set of tweeters into the Grand Cherokee project. So to get this process started, I of course first removed the stock panel from the vehicle. This is the panel that we're going to be modifying to hold our new, much larger tweeter. Here's a size comparison for you guys. So this is the stock tweeter, and then here we have the slightly larger new aftermarket tweeter. I took the aftermarket tweeter out of its tweeter ring, and in comparison to our factory panel here, you can see that we definitely have some modification to do. I've already made a couple of different things in preparation for this modification on my 3D printer. I first designed and printed this ring here. What this ring does is it accepts the aftermarket tweeter ring. If we press that in here, you can see we have a nice tight fit. I printed this using ABS plastic, which has a much higher heat resistance. That way we don't have to worry about this on hot summer days. But using this, I'm going to cut out the factory panel. I'm going to glue this into position and mold it into place, and that will be the new mounting location for the new tweeter. Now I've also 3D printed this guy here, this plug. I made this out of red PLA plastic just because this is just a plug that I'm going to be using for the fabrication process. It's not going to be in the finished part. But the point of this is, because this ring is kind of small and thin and you can see it can flex a little bit, I'm actually going to keep this inside of the ring while I'm doing the fabrication process. That way I don't have to worry about this ring potentially warping. I'm using a rag along with some painter's tape and these clamps to lightly clamp it to the table. That helps to protect the panel while keeping it still. I've positioned my new adapter ring on the panel, and then using a silver Sharpie, I've carefully traced around that to get a rough idea of the cutout that I'm going to need to make for this piece. To do all of the cutting, I'm going to be using this Dremel tool here. I just picked this up and I'm super impressed with this thing. I think I might do a review video and an upcoming video just talking about this. This is super nice for precision work. I can really guide this cutoff wheel perfectly to cut on that line. The most important thing I want to remind myself while I'm doing this process is you can't add on material easily. So on my first cut, I'm going to be inside of this line slightly, and then I'm going to test it in relationship to our new ring, and I'm going to slowly expand it as need be to get that ring to fit. The nice thing about this Dremel is I can also do some sanding with this attachment here. So I continue that process of cutting and sanding until I am able to position that new ring in place and have it fit. And then I check even more that it's fitting without flexing by adding in the plug and then mounting it in position. Now the nice thing about doing it this way, where I cut a hole and then have this adapter ring, is I do have a fair amount of flexibility in how I can align this ring and position it before I actually glue the two pieces together. To actually do the alignment of the ring, I'm going to use my speaker alignment tool here that I sell on my store. I'm actually going to mount this panel in the vehicle, and then this will sit on it like so, and I can turn on the laser pointer and determine exactly where this is aiming. I've got the panel reinstalled back into the vehicle here, and I'm going to close the door and apply my alignment tool, and we're going to see where this aims. Sorry, not the best lighting on camera here, but you can see that it aims at the opposite B pillar, just about halfway down on the seatbelt thing here. So what I want to make sure that I do is when I align the other ring, I'm going to want it to align in the same position. As a quick side note, I forgot to mention that I did actually test where these were aiming in their factory position, and it was about that same area. I like the staging even of this factory system, so I kind of want to keep that same aiming pattern, and it helps the panel to look good as well. It doesn't have an obtrusive angle on that speaker, so I'm going to retain that factory angle position. So now that I have this ring in perfect position, I'm going to adhere it to the factory panel using this CA glue. Now there's no great way to capture this camera angle, and I want to make sure that I'm not accidentally moving this ring while I'm doing this, so I'll catch up with you guys in a second. Now while I'm gluing that together, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Crutchfield. When you're installing new speakers or a radio or other car audio gear into a vehicle, it can be a challenge to know how to disassemble the different panels in the vehicle. To help you understand how to remove the stock equipment from your vehicle, Crutchfield offers what they call the Master Sheet. The Master Sheet tells you what tools you need for each task and includes pictures along with a step-by-step process for installation. Availability, of course, depends on the vehicle and depends on what you are installing, but many times Crutchfield includes access to the Master Sheet for your vehicle with the purchase of gear. And don't forget, if you have a question about a purchase, you can always contact their friendly technical support team. Next time you're looking for new car audio gear, definitely check out Crutchfield and be sure to check the link down in the video description for a special offer for car audio fabrication fans. So I now have this ring mounted in position. You can see a little bit of the CA glue there, and I've done it on both the front side and around the back side of the panel. That way, just to make sure that it's good and strong and held in position. Obviously, this is kind of jagged, this edge. This isn't going to give us a finished look, so we need to apply some body filler. Body filler will allow us to make a nice new surface over all of this and to sand it and smooth it out. But one of the things we need to do to prepare for that is I want to drill some small holes in the panel around the ring in the areas that the body filler will be. That will just help the body filler to get a better bite to this panel and hold on a lot better. That way we don't have to worry about it cracking in the future. The holes in the panel now look a little something like this. I also want to prepare this panel for body filler by protecting some of the areas that I don't want body filler to stick with painter's tape. So I've got this panel all protected, and I've done everything that I've shown you guys so far to the other side of the vehicle as well. Obviously, we want to do the same process to each side. One more thing to prepare before body filler, I'm going to use this SEM paint for plastic and leather prep. I'm going to prepare it by cleaning it off using that, and then I'm also going to apply some plastic adhesion promoter. This will allow that body filler, again, to get a little bit better bite into that surface. To use these is pretty self-explanatory, just follow the directions on the can. The body filler that I'm going to be using for this project is Evercoat Rage Gold. I really like this body filler because it's simple to put on and it sands incredibly nice. It has a yellow color to it and it comes with blue activators, so I'm mixing the two together until I get a nice consistent green color. I start applying it to the panel, and the first coat is always going to be pretty rough. It's kind of hard to really get the shape that you want all in one go, so don't be surprised if it kind of looks well, not that great. The most important thing to the body filler process is you don't want to let the body filler dry for too long. You want to sand it once it's entered its green stage. So test for it to kind of sand like styrofoam, and once it does, that's when you want to start sanding. I continue adding more and more layers of body filler, and you want to look out for spots that are low spots and not sand too much, just build it back up in the next layer. For my final layers, I switched to a different body filler that's a little bit more creamy and allows me to really sand out those pinholes and smooth everything out. So after a ton of fun sanding, here is where we're at. We've got those rings completely molded in and everything is nice and smooth. When I was doing rough sanding, I was using this really coarse 80 grit, and then I stepped it up to this 150 grit, and then for the final stage of sanding, after my final layer of material, I used 600 grit. It's hard to see on video, but these panels have a light texture to them, a light plastic texture. So in order to mimic that, I'm going to be using this SEM paint, the texture coating, which will allow me to get a similar effect. To apply this, it's just a matter of following the directions on the can. I'll be using the plastic adhesion promoter just to make sure that we get a good bond between these two surfaces. For the texture coat, we actually have to apply it more than 18 inches away, so that's why you can't really see me. I'm slightly off screen. Also, be sure to check that the nozzle is nice and clean. I had a few little splatters that came out larger than anticipated, but no big deal. I was able to just quickly sand those away. To finalize the coating, I'm using the color coat. I went with the satin black color. That way I perfectly match the interior panel. Now I've learned that when these coatings are still kind of wet, they kind of look rough. They don't really look like they blend in well. You really want to allow them to dry at least a day to fully achieve the results you're looking for. Once my panels were good and dry, I reinstalled them into the vehicle, and here I'm obviously installing that tweeter back into its new mounting position. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It matches the interior perfectly in here. I like that I kept the focal trim ring around the tweeter here because it has that kind of nice silver polished look that matches a lot of the interior. We still have nice clearance for this vent here that defogs this window. So it looks good, and of course, both sides perfectly match one another. So what do you guys think? I put a lot of time and effort into making these videos, so if I could get your feedback, it'd really be appreciated. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. My favorite thing about these is I feel like if you didn't know that they were custom made, you would have a really hard time even being able to tell. Now, when you go through this labor-intensive process, you obviously want to protect the tweeters as well, and I'll be talking about that in an upcoming video. To catch that video, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Don't forget to visit Crutchfield for your future car audio needs and check out their master sheets. Again, there's a link down below to a special offer for car audio fabrication fans. A special thanks to Crutchfield along with Bernard, John, Brian, Ali, Jeremy, Doug, Steve, Emmanuel, Jerry, and the rest of the Patreon membership team. Big thanks to all of them for helping make these videos possible. I'll catch you guys in the next one.